I was in the CIA for 25 years. I had a region from Kabul, Afghanistan to Seoul, Korea that I had to cover. I obviously served under a variety of presidents and heads of Central Intelligence. The official title when you're in the field is Technical Operations Officer. When I was recruited into the CIA as an artist, they were looking for people who had the hand skills to find detail. I was cross-trained in the field in the art of disguise. You have to change identities in order to go out and do the business. You can't do it from an armchair in Moscow or Washington. You have to go out and cross international borders. In order to do that securely and get back with the enemy's secrets, you have to be able to break your trail. We were not only working under tight deadlines, we were working on long-range deadlines involving millions of dollars investment in solving some of the problems. I was sent to Vientiane, Laos, which we should say was the most disguised city in the world just because it was a neutralist country. So on the streets of this small town, there were all these spies swirling around, members of the opposition as well as friendlies. When I arrived there with 26 disguises that I had to fit and train the recipients in, I found out there was a case involving a black American and a national figure from the Laotian government. They were trying to meet clandestinely at dusk in the middle of town. So this black American was sweating bullets because he was the only black American in town and he had to handle the most important case that the U.S. was running. So he turned to me and said, "What can we do?" And I thought, well, recently we contacted a guy in Hollywood. Maybe he knows. So I met with these subjects and made measurements of their heads and photographs of their bodies and so forth and so on. And I sent back a long dispatch outlining an idea that was then passed to his Hollywood contact. And the next thing you know, in the diplomatic mail, I got 2 stunt double masks that had not been decorated, but they fit my measurements. Very evening that I first outfitted them, and they went out to do their business, they ran into what we had been fearing all along was a random roadblock. But the fact that there were 2 white faces in a diplomatic plated car in this South Asian capital, they were waved right through the control point. And so it worked. Jerome, as we called him, a lot of people know him by JC, was the #1 makeup artist in the world at that point. He had made a movie called The List of Adrian Messenger, and we saw that movie and we were inspired to see if he would maybe help us because of his achievement in motion pictures. And it turns out that he was a true patriot, and he ended up being the first non-staffer to be decorated with the Intelligence Medal of Merit. John Chambers was one of life's great characters. I have to rephrase that. I shouldn't call him John Chambers. You understand it's a matter of form that we don't identify our sources even though everybody knows who they are. JC was one of life's great characters. Because of his talent, he was highly sought after, but also he was sought after because of his personality. He was a great guy to be with. You were trying to achieve excellence, but at the same time, you're going to have fun while you're doing it. There are 2 types of exfiltration, with hostile pursuit and without hostile pursuit. Guess which one do you prefer?
Mr. Chambers? Kevin Harkins?
Hey, Tony.
And I remembered that we had just been working with JC, and he came to mind. The way I convinced headquarters that we should do this is I used a trick that we used all the time. When we wanted to sell an idea or promote something, the best way to do that was not to write a memorandum in Washington. It was to send one of our officers to the field and have them write back via cable, which has much more urgency to it than a memorandum. And everybody reads the cable traffic every day, so my 16-page cable outlined all the options that we discussed, talked about the things that we needed to make them work, outlined this idea of a motion picture production party scouting a location. And what I did to make it even more binding was to establish a deadline of Friday at noon, citing the fact that the Canadians were getting tired of taking care of the 6, and they were in the midst of drawing down their embassy, and this caused a little fervor in Washington. By the time I got there later that day, I was in a spot of trouble. Turned out it wasn't too bad. I just got a chewing out for overstepping my authority, but then I was told that it was considered to be a real fine piece of work and to get on with it.
We want you to go to LA. If you can make the movie thing credible, we'll take you to the director. Don't fuck up. The whole country is watching you.
This was a game with no rules, so it was very dangerous.
Sir, exfils are like abortions. You don't want to need one, but when you do, you don't do it yourself.
Well, the most dangerous thing about it was the capriciousness of the people that we were trying to work around. We had no way of predicting what the Revolutionary Guard would do if they caught us. The phrase we used to admonish each other for going into such a situation was, don't get caught in any Jeep drags, which means that if you get caught and they behead you or whatever they're going to do to you, the thing they like to do then is take your corpse and tie it on the back of a Jeep and drag it through your corpse through the villages to show them off. So you make sure the logistics are right. It's all 90% logistics and 10% fear. And our tourist map showed us that the Canadian embassy was across the street from the U.S. embassy. But after making our way there and looking at the embassy with some trepidation, because we realized that there were 52 Americans being held hostage behind those walls, we realized that the Canadian embassy was not there. It was the Swedish embassy. So it was about lunchtime when we got to the Canadian embassy. We knocked on the door, and the person who came to let us in turned out to be the ambassador of Canada, Ken Taylor.
Ken Taylor.
Thank you for what you're doing.
I was expecting more of a G-man look.
I think you're thinking of the FBI, sir.
We very quickly made a plan to meet with the 6 house guests, as they've been dubbed. They didn't seem anxious, although I'm sure they were. They seemed up for whatever we were going to propose.
Hi, my name's Kevin Harkins, and I'm going to get you home.
One of the things that I had to agree to in order to get Washington to allow me to launch the operation was I had to promise to offer to the 6 not only the Hollywood option, but to review the fact that they could be out-of-work school teachers knocking at the school doors. So I asked them, after I'd laid out the options, to go to another room and knock it around amongst themselves.
That man out there has got bad cards, and he is going to lose. And if he loses, it's our lives.
And his life, too.
So I barged into the room and said, let me show you what we're going to be doing here. And I had a sleight of hand that I used in moments like this to demonstrate to the person that you were trying to impress what we were really about. And it was a trick of transferring 2 wine corks, one through the other. What we're going to do here is show you how it's going to work in the airport. Over here are the bad guys, and over here is the plane to Zurich. And we're going to move you clandestinely through these controls. And that's when I manipulated the corks and, in a lame sort of way, tried to impress them with what we were about to do. But it seemed to work. After we allowed the house guests to read their dossier. It was then handed to them, and their assignment was to learn it so that it becomes real. So this was given to them on a Friday evening, and by Sunday evening, we were ready to go. We were going to launch first thing Monday morning. We chose the very early morning Swiss Air flight from Tehran to Zurich because it arrived very early and it left very early.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is our pleasure to announce that alcoholic beverages are now available as we have cleared Iranian airspace.
And the rest is history. I don't get tired of telling the story. I just try to tell it really well each time so that it's still fresh.